speaking of Hall of Famers, Myles Garrett will someday be a Hall of Famer.
Yes, he will.
Tausch and I discussed this earlier in the week. The way you lose to the Browns, given where their offense is at with 68-year-old Joe Flacco at quarterback, is you let Myles Garrett wreck your game and have a sack, fumble. The way the Pack returned for a touchdown, the way the Packers defense is playing, you feel really good about it. You cannot allow a future Hall of Famer to wreck the game. You obviously follow your former team very closely. I think their defense is better than probably Packers fans are realizing this week. How do you view this matchup?
So obviously we've seen the point spread, and the Browns are not favored. Packers are rolling. Browns are doing the opposite. But if I'm a Packers fan, what are the things that I'm looking for when I'm watching this game? One, can I block Myles Garrett, right? Because that's the key. This defense, although maybe when you look at their numbers, you're thinking, well, they're good, but they're not great. No, this is a great defense. It's just the offense hasn't pissed a drop the entire season. They've had like 0 drives, and so they continue to put the defense in difficult situations. But still, the defense has held up really, really well. They've got the best rushing defense in the NFL, and so they really need to actually try to go at the Browns defense with Josh Jacobs to establish that run, because what the Browns' defensive strategy is going to be is they want to make the Packers one-dimensional by taking away the run and then allowing Myles Garrett to rush the passer. They've got 2 great cornerbacks, Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward, both Pro Bowl guys on the outside, but their third position, that slot corner, that nickel corner, is really, really weak. And so teams have been going and spreading out their 2 number 1 and number 2 receivers to try to get Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome wide or out of the box and out of that situation where they can have any type of help defense. And then they've gone right at that nickel cornerback position. And so I think that's what Jordan Love is going to try to do. That's what the Packers are going to try to do. But if the Browns are able to get him one-dimensional by stopping the run, then nobody can block Myles Garrett. That's just a absolute fact. That is not subjective. That is objective fact. He's impossible to block, even when you try to double team him. And so it's just a matter of how quickly can we get the ball to our number 3 guy. And so I have a ton of respect for LaFleur. He's an amazing coach. He does a great job setting up plays in series, not just thinking of plays as individual. Okay, this is a good play, that's a good play. Like the way he tries to set it up, the way he shifts in formations to be able to get advantageous matchups in the passing game, I think is going to be really important for the Packers to be able to find a way to get the ball quickly to their number 3 guy, whoever that nickel corner is covering. That's going to be the key to the game right there for the Packers offense.
So, Joe, how would you did not probably have a lot of help throughout your years of playing with chips and with everything else, but if you're devising a plan and you blocked Myles Garrett probably, I believe you said one of the reasons you retired is because you had to block Myles Garrett as much as you did during training camp, because he is unblockable. What would you want as an old tackle, and what do you think is the best way to slow down great pass rushers for average offensive tackles?
Yeah, so the reason Aaron Donald was so dominant for all those years as an interior pass rusher, because it's much harder to handle an interior guy, right? Because you can always slide to him and kind of double him, but it's not like you can add a chip from an interior position. And the way he would get up the field and split those double teams, like he was almost unblockable. That's why they won the Super Bowl when he was there. But on the outside, the best way to block Myles Garrett is to get into empty, right? So no running backs in the backfield, but you take a tight end or 2 sometimes, depending on if you have 2 pass catching tight ends. You put him in that near hip position, kind of off the line of scrimmage, but right off the hip of the tackle. And then before they get out in their route, they give a hit or a chip right down the middle of that defensive end, right down the middle of Myles Garrett. So they slow him down for just a split second, because then he can't get his first 2 steps in the ground like a sprinter would. And that little bit of slowing him down gives the offensive tackle time to get off the ball and then get his feet in balance and beat Myles to the spot that he wants to be at. And then he's still going to lose, but at least you're buying yourself a second and a half. Yeah. You're slowing him down. You're giving yourself a chance to get off the line of scrimmage so that you can beat him to the spot, because Myles wins so often because he's so quick off the ball. So now an offensive tackle is trying to catch up. And right, remember, we're worse athletes than they are. And that's another objective truth. Yep. And so now I'm off balance because I'm trying to catch up to a guy who's already ahead of me. He's running forward. I'm running backwards. And now, because I'm off balance, he can do whatever he wants to me. He can put his foot in the ground and beat me to the inside. He can keep rushing up the field, which that's his best move, is that dip and rip where he turns the corner and he almost takes like a 90-degree angle once he gets about 7 yards up the field and turns towards the quarterback. And so just to be able to prevent that is really important. But the reason you have to have two guys in is because Myles is just as good at rushing the passer over the left tackle as he is over the right tackle. And a lot of times on third down, if they like the matchup over the right tackle, or they feel like teams are just trying to jury rig the protection to put an extra guy only on the left side, they'll just flip him over, or he'll just do it himself. He has that freedom in our defense to be able to just say, hey, over there on the other defensive end position, you go over there, rush the left tackle. I'm rushing the right tackle in this position in this series on third down, because I want to be able to get after the quarterback. So it's really important to be able to still have three receivers in the route that are available to go down the field with Jordan Love wanting to probably throw the ball a little bit down the field, especially towards the middle, and still having those two tight ends or a tight end or another player that can go on both sides of their tackles.
So, Joe, you blocked Freeney, you obviously Myles Garrett. Who of
DeMarcus Ware, Terrell Suggs, James Harrison,
players,
all those guys.
Yeah, Suggs. What is it about? Is it just because he's such a freak athletically? Like, what is it that makes the Myles Garrett? Because there are plenty of players where you have to focus. Julius Peppers. Myles Garrett just seems even different or on a higher level than that.
Yeah, so when I talk to people, I'll give them the 30-second, like, why is Myles Garrett so good? It's because he's 280 pounds. He runs a 4.55, which is great. There's guys that do that in the world, but not many. He's extremely powerful. Like, I had the record in our weight room for the static pull, which is, if you could imagine, like a hang clean position if you're in the weight room, and it's a bar that's connected to the bottom of the power rack. So you can't move it, but it's got a sensor to see like how many pounds you can pull. And my record was like 1,000 pounds or something, like 1,050. And Myles was the only guy that I played with in my entire career that was close to that number. And I'm sure now he's blown that away because he was a rookie. He was like 20 years old at the time when he did that. So he's extremely powerful. But really what makes him unique is his ability to run at full speed, that 4.55 speed, and turn the corner. If you've ever seen training camp, which I'm sure all you guys have, the defensive linemen love to put these big like hula hoops out, and then they run in a circle, right? And it's training them to be able to run on a curve at high speed. And Myles has these really flexible ankles. I'm like a nerd about ankle flexibility, right? Because being able to get your heels in the ground allows you to create the most force through contact. He's able to put his full foot in the ground, so his heel is in the ground. His shin angle, so his shin is like almost touching the ground. Shin angle, almost touching the ground when he's turning that corner. And so it allows him to run full speed, but also be very, very low. If you imagine like a limbo bar at like 3 feet high, he can run 4.5 and do a 90-degree turn. And he's getting under that 3-foot bar because he's so low. And then the power that he has. So as an offensive tackle, now you're trying to move as fast as you can, trying to block a guy that's like 3 feet off the ground. And by the way, as soon as he gets into your pads, now he's lower than you and he can lift you up and throw you into the quarterback, even if you're ahead of him. If you're not ahead of him, he can just dip that shoulder even further. And then now he's gone underneath you and then he's coming back downhill onto the quarterback. So he is the impossible player to block out there as a defensive end because of shin angle, speed, power, and his ability to turn that corner by keeping his feet in the ground with his great ankle mobility. So watch for that on Sunday. It'll be fun if you're just a football biomechanics nerd.
Other than that, good luck. Good luck if you're trying to block him.
Good.
So, how did you compare him to Micah? Because Micah, obviously, everybody here is super excited because he has brought that star element to the defensive side of the ball, and he's made the rest of the defense better. He is a freak as well. But what do you see when you're watching Micah? How's his shin angle and all of the things that you're looking at?
Well, if you're looking at somebody who's probably the most similar to Myles Garrett in the NFL today, it's Micah Parsons, right? He's a guy that can play on both sides. He can play off the ball. He can play on the ball. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can play inside. And so he has that versatility that Myles has as well. And he does bend really, really well. I think if you look at maybe how do you differentiate the two guys, I think Mike is probably not as powerful as Myles Garrett is. And that's not saying he's not powerful, but Myles is in a class by himself. Micah typically is playing out of a 2-point stance a lot. And I think his shiftiness and his shake is probably similar to where Myles is. And so he can put his foot in the ground, like his outside foot in the ground as he's rushing. And as a tackle, I'm thinking he's going up the field. But the way he puts that foot in the ground, he can redirect so quickly. And then he uses his hands. And I think it's that relentless motor that gets him a lot of sacks as well. And his ability to use those long arms that he has to extend and wrap up quarterbacks when he's getting close, which is a lot of guys' problem. Like I watched Trey Hendrickson, and I think he was the NFL sack leader last year. He's a great player, but he misses so many sacks because he's right there, but he's not able to just finish that sack by reaching that arm out and bending and dipping and securing the quarterback and bringing him all the way to the ground. Whereas a guy like Micah, like he gets close to that quarterback and he brings him down like every single time. It's really fun to watch those guys, and it's even more fun when I don't have to block them.
It does make things a lot easier when you don't. Joe, last one for me. I know you got to get out and ranch and get that Wagyu and do all that great stuff.
That's right.
Badger football, give us just your quick synopsis of what you've seen so far and what we need. This is a huge, I think we all agree, this is a big boy weekend for Luke Fickell and his staff going against Maryland at home Saturday morning.
Yeah, obviously, so far the offense has not returned to the ground and pound where they can just run the ball at will, like was the signature for Wisconsin teams going back to even before Tausch was there. And I think that's what they really need to do to be able to get something sparked on offense. With losing their quarterback early in the season, it is not going to be a team on offense for the Badgers where they can just throw the ball and catch back up into games. They need to really focus on that run game. They need to dominate and use their size up front. I think looking at the season, everybody kind of expected them to be 2-1 right now. I think when you watch the games, they didn't look as good as we'd hoped as Badger fans because the offense is not really doing anything. Defense is playing fairly well. I think the defense is stepping in the right direction. They're playing physical. I think they're starting to understand the type of football that Luke Fickell wants them to play. But on the offensive side, really, it's got to be that run game that gets going. And this is such an important game to prove not only to themselves, but to Badger fans that we still should believe in this team, that they're really building themselves and growing into this new offense that they're trying to run. And that a beginning, when you switch offensive coordinators, it does become a little bit tough to get things going because offensive football has so many more things that are involved and so much more coordination that has to happen between the offensive line and how they're blocking and their aiming points and the running backs aiming points. And so we expect them to get better, but they have to prove it this weekend against a team that you feel like you should win. And so I think this is a really, really important game because you go 2-2 and you're already losing a game that you feel like you should win and looking not so great in the 3 games that you played before this. And there's going to be even more questions than there already is. So this one is a huge game, even in my opinion, way bigger than Alabama, because I don't think there was a lot of people that were realistic that thought, yeah, we're going to go down to Alabama and beat them, right? But we wanted to look better than we did. But this week, it's you're on the chopping block. Let's go. It's time right now to prove it to us as fans and prove it to yourself that this is headed in the right direction and we can smash mouth football up front and dominate with our offensive line and our run game.
So, Joe, because we're so young and depending on what happens with Renfro at center, there could be 3 redshirt freshmen. How do you go about wanting to do what you're saying? And obviously Grimes has come in and I think has done a really good job of kind of reshaping what the offense is going to look like, but staying patient in an era where you can't be patient. Because, you look at me or even you as a freshman, you grew and got a lot better, and all the guys that you played with that were young, you have to allow for that. But this college football landscape doesn't really allow. How do you kind of rectify that?
It's the situation we're in. It's great to say like, oh, it'd be nice to have guys that sit around and practice and develop for 3-4 years and then go in and play and they're ready to go. But that's not the reality of college football anymore. And so it's a matter of going in there and Badger offensive linemen from, going back to when Joe Panos was here and they won the Rose Bowl, like you build that toughness in training camp, you build the technique and you simplify the offense for these guys. And so you're having concepts that are easy for them to understand and allow them to just play big and physical and tough and smash mouth football. And you don't ask them to do a whole lot of things. Like, it's the same concepts with maybe more window dressing on offense, different shifts, different formations, but getting to a lot of the same concepts where you're pulling your guard, you're running some of those power plays, those inside zones, you're trying to get to a few outside zones, and you're just trying to be patient and impose your will on the defense, which sometimes it's not the most fun thing for an offensive lineman to just go in there and smash skulls for 60 plays a game, but that's our style, and that's what we've been successful in the past, and that's what we really need to focus on. And it's okay to be patient and trying to frustrate the defense and wear them down and then try to win the game in the fourth quarter, because you've got to just look yourself in the mirror and understand who you are and what your identity is going to be, and then you have to lean into it. And you know what? I don't care who's in there. The standard doesn't change, whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, or a junior. If you're wearing a W on your helmet, we're expecting these things from you. And so pushing those guys in the week of practice like they did during training camp and saying, hey, I don't really care how much experience you've had. This is our standard, and this is what we expect of you. I mean, Hubes was doing that to us when we were there. I mean, I played as a freshman. I know, Tausch, you didn't play till the end of your career, but Hubes didn't care. But he was going to coach everybody the exact same way, and he was going to dictate and demand the same things out of everybody.
All right, Joe. So, and we're talking with Joe Thomas. He's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, but what he really is a Hall of Fame beef rancher. Again, it's halloffamebeef.com. I just followed the Twitter account, so I'm on top of that now, and you can order straight from the website. Again, I can't recommend enough the beef sticks. I'm sure I'll be able to recommend the steaks once Joe comes and feeds them to me like a little birdie after he cooks them on my grill for me. The speakers have started at the Greater Bucky Open, so we're going to let Tausch and Jesse sit there for a few minutes so Jesse doesn't get put in that awkward position of giving scores and highlights while people are talking about heartfelt things, especially when you're talking about some of the stuff that's going to be discussed today. So, Joe, I just had a couple of quick ones to let you go. One, you and Tausch were just talking about, Badger football. And to me, and I know you've been involved heavily with the Badger collective and everything, that varsity and everything else. The one thing that I would say, more so than it being running back you or tight end you, is that it's always been offensive line you, right? Whether it was guys that were like Tausch, who played at the end of his career and became an 11-year NFL veteran, or a guy like you who came in as a stud recruit and left as a third overall pick. How do you make sure that when you're building a program in today's era, that you are always getting that, hey, we grow great beef in the driftless region, and we grow great offensive linemen in Wisconsin? Does that have to be a priority to make sure that that position is always well stocked, like your Yeti cooler?
Absolutely, because the tradition at Wisconsin, if you ask anybody around the country, it's offensive linemen, even before running backs, because we've had some great running backs here, obviously, but really it was set up because the table was set by the great offensive lines that they had in front. And, being around the offensive coaches a little bit like I've been, they've got a couple great ones as offensive line coaches. Casey Robach, a guy that Tauscher knows very well. I think he's a tremendous coach. Obviously, he's got great experience in the NFL as a player and had a great career at Wisconsin. A.J. Blazek, another great player who played in the Big Ten and is a fantastic coach. And it does take time, unfortunately, to develop offensive linemen, but getting the right guys in there with the right mindset is so important. And to me, that was always what the difference was at Wisconsin, because we recruited guys that were probably similar talent-wise, or maybe even a little notch down from some of the top schools in the country. But identifying those traits that are not talent related were so important, I think, for bringing in guys to Wisconsin and then coaching them really hard, working them really hard in the weight room, getting the right weight on them, making sure that they're physically able to be strong and to be dominant in the fourth quarter. I think it was so important because they wanted guys that bought into the culture, that were willing to work and they're willing to do the things that the other guys were not willing to do. And they were doing it with a team first approach. And I believe that the guys that we've got there as coaches in the offensive line room are the right guys for that job. And I think now seeing that an offense that is being run is similar, to be able to lean into that Wisconsin culture of offensive linemen with the tough, physical, hardworking, team-first guys, I think that it's definitely headed in the right direction. But I think all of us in Badger Nation now want to be able to see that on Saturdays. They want to see that the progress is being made, and that you can have a game that you can hang your hat on and say, look, boom, right there. That's it. That's the Wisconsin offensive line that I'm used to seeing. They've got the right players in there. They've identified the guys that have the ability and the willingness to go in for 60 minutes on a Saturday and run power 40 times if you have to run right at the other team and be more physical, more dominant, and win that war of attrition up front. And being around some of those offensive linemen, there's some young guys, but I think they have that mindset of the offensive lines of the past for Badger football that became so great, because offensive line play is not about the talent. Really, a lot of times it's about your technique and your effort and your toughness and your willingness, like I said before, to do the little things that the other guy is not willing to do because it's too hard or too uncomfortable.
All right, last thing so we can get you back to the cows and everything else you've got going on. I like to think of myself as a very nice person who occasionally can zing people, whether it's Brian Bulaga with Bruce Irvin, or Iowa's frequent inability to score points, or it's you with your incredible decorated career. And you know I love you, but you never went to the playoffs. And I'm just wondering if, I know I do that to you all the time because I'm a jerk. I get it. But I have a purpose this time for once. By the way, we got a question. Is your Hall of Fame bust in the background? Do you have like a replica, or?
It's a replica, but it's a nice replica. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. He's got nice sunglasses on, of course. And he's got the dog bone chain. Yeah, that's right. So it's not the original. Obviously, that one's in Canton. But they give you a really nice plastic replica that looks just like it. And so awesome. I got Joe Cool behind me. But what I was pointing to was my glass case that's empty, and it's my NFL playoff participation trophy that is coming maybe someday. Didn't make that, but you're right. Sorry, cut you off.
Yes, and no, that was great, and we really wanted to see we really wanted to see your bust, and we got to see it. So, but my question is, being back in Wisconsin, and having gone through what you did with the Browns, and now the Packers playing the Browns this week, I guess you are uniquely qualified to just remind Packers fans once in a while how good they have it, right? Like, I can't imagine what it's like to be a Browns fan. I mean, now Baker Mayfield's down in Tampa slinging it like nobody's business. You guys, they've tried everything at quarterback. Now they've got two preschoolers and a guy that is 50 years old playing the position. They had, 8 quarterbacks during the course of training camp? Like, do you hold out hope that your franchise will someday get it right? And B, do they provide a cautionary tale to, hey, don't take for granted winning, because not everybody gets to do what the Packers do?
I think the great thing about sports in America and the passion that we have for football is there's this feeling inside of all of us as fans that we're never satisfied. No matter where you are as a fan base, you always want more. And I couldn't agree with you more that Packers fans are very spoiled, because they have had a lot of greatness, and a lot of greatness at one position that's kind of important in football, and that's quarterback, going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love. And I think, yes, as fans, we always want more. We want Super Bowls. We feel like we deserve more. Like, I wasn't a Packer fan when Aaron Rodgers was there, but you felt like they should have won more Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. You had the greatest quarterback in the game, maybe one of the most talented of all times, and you won one Super Bowl. And so you feel like there was more there. There was more meat left on the Hall of Fame beef rib bone.
Oh,
but
what a pro. What a pro.
That's a good plug right there. True pro. Big P pro. But I think maybe not on Sundays you want to appreciate how great you've had it, but at some point during the week you want to maybe take a step back and say, hey, at least we're not the Cleveland Browns because they haven't even played in a Super Bowl. They wish they had a Jordan Love anytime in the last 30 years, even though I know there's some Packer fans that are still wondering, hey, is this guy going to be as good as Aaron Rodgers? You know, we're excited about where he is and stuff, but it's fun having those conversations about how deep the Packers are going to go in the playoffs versus saying, hey, maybe we can get a good quarterback in the draft next year because we're already out of the playoffs and it's November.
Joe, we love it when you make time for us. It is absolutely a blessing, and we had a great time talking beef and football. Let me know if you want me to pick up your Yeti cooler. I'll be at Lambeau later today, so I can grab it for you. But thanks so much for your time, and we wish you the best, buddy. Thank you.
Guys, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. You always brighten my day by reminding me how bad the Browns have been forever, including my 1-31 last 2 years there and no playoff appearances. But it's truly a joy. Thank you guys so much for having
Thanks
me
for
on.
the autograph book.
Proud to be here, guys. And you're welcome, Tausch, for that autograph book that you gave to Jesse.